Live. We are live on YouTube. I think we're live on Twitch, Facebook disconnected, so we'll have to connect that back. But shout out to everybody. This is going to be an interview, a live chat conversation with Dame Ritter. If you don't know Dame Ritter, he created the Music Entrepreneur Club and also had folks on, I believe, DJ Payne 1 and Aaron as well. Forgive me if I'm missing anybody's name there. And what we'll do is really just see his perspective on the music industry, the music business, where it's headed, because we have so many changes. But this is someone who I respect because he sees the reality of what the music business is, and it's not just fluff, whereas most people give you the fluff. All right, so our Discord. All right, so we got YouTube rocking. Let me make sure we're good on the YouTube side, and I'm gonna load up Zoom. Make sure YouTube is straight. Okay, double check. Looks like we got a couple folks on YouTube. I want to thank you. Smash the like button. If you wouldn't mind, we could get this party rocking. Let me double check the audio. Give me a sec. Give you the fluff. All right, so all right, good. I'm glad I checked because my audio was was quiet because I was watching my son last night, and the audio was on like 0. Okay, so let's load this zoomies up. Get this thing rocking. But yes, this is an unfiltered, unscripted. Actually, I have a couple notes just so I stay on track. But this is not a scripted convo. This is Dame's pure thoughts. And I'm going to let him basically have the ISO because I already given my opinions through multiple videos. Let's switch screens real quick. There we go. Now you guys can see. All right. So I want to thank everybody. In the meantime, as I set this up, I should have like a template for this so I don't have to set it up each time. So if anybody knows how to set up a template who uses Streamlabs, let me know. But I'll preface it with this is that here's my monologue, I guess, beforehand, is the music industry and the music business can be seen as two separate things, in my opinion. The music industry is controlled by Sony, Warner, Universal. Those three companies make power moves with all of the apps and all. Oh, never mind. Here we go. I'm going to shut up and let the actual pro speak for himself. So as we get ready here, I got cat hair flying everywhere. The man himself.
Yo, what up? How you doing?
What's going on? Living life. I can't complain. I was trying to give him a little monologue, but I didn't even have the words to articulate it properly. How you feeling?
It's Monday morning, man. I'm trying to get to it. So I've been up for a little bit, but it's still just trying to wipe some of the sleep out my eyes. I got a lot of stuff to do today. So but excited to get this talk going. Are we already live?
Yeah, I like to prep people to get them ready so that they're paying attention.
Oh, got you. Okay.
Yeah, no secrets. Please don't share. What is Joe Budden say? No secrets.
So where are we live at? You want me to tweet it out? I don't. You can put it in the chat if you want to.
Oh, it's all good. I usually push these after the fact to the email list and everything. We're on YouTube /BusyWorksBeats, but I usually blast this to the email for the replay.
Okay, dope.
Awesome.
Well,
Awesome.
what up to the Busy Works Beats fam?
What's going on?
Appreciate you inviting me. Don't know what we're talking about, but ready to get to it.
No, yeah, I wanted to give you like an ISO. I was saying beforehand is like, how pass you the ball and you just cross everybody over and dunk it. Because I really want to hear your thoughts. I don't think we get to really hear a solo perspective because I was giving you, thanks and credit for starting the MAC because you educated, pardon me, you educated so many folks through the Music Entrepreneur Club. 200 episodes later, free information that people could go back and watch religiously. And you got the No Labels Necessary hoodie. That's dope. Shout out to Brand Man.
Yeah, they came. So I'm currently at the Two Lost office. My full-time role is now director of communications for a music distribution company called Two Lost. And little plug real quick. You can use the promo code DAME to get 3 months free music distribution at twolost.com. But yeah, they came through probably a couple months ago, and we did their podcast. So that was dope, and they blessed me with a sweatshirt that's pretty comfortable.
Oh, sick. Yeah, tell me about Two Lost because I mean. What I love is that they got your attention. So if you believe in this vision, then how can it help the producer community and the artist community?
Yeah, so I mean, I never really got fully behind a distribution company. I always felt like they, kind of did the same thing. And, don't get me wrong, music distribution is not going to make or break an artist's career. At the end of the day, you guys are going to have to do the pushing. It's you guys creating the content. It's you guys telling a story. It's you guys building a community. But I definitely feel like Two Lost has a lot of features. And the way we're approaching things is a little different than other music distribution companies. For one, we distribute your music to more stores than any other music distributor. So I think the stores goes up to like 450 stores globally. So obviously you got your main Spotify, Apple Music, but there's a shitload of other DSPs around the world. And a lot of times when artists bring their music over, they notice a little bump in their sales just because we're distributing to more stores, right?
See.
So and then we're only $3 a month. Um, $3 a month. I think it's like $20 a year. If it's just an artist account, you get a label account for like $6 a month. So it's pretty cheap. And I feel like the team is kind of on top of always rolling out new features. So when you log in using my code, you just log in for free. Just use the code DAME. And you'll see like, you can register for copyright. There's an AI cover art generator. There's an instant advance option if that's available to you, given your streaming history. There's a lot of features that are baked in because we're trying to build it in a way that you don't have to really go out to any other platform, to grow your music or to distribute your music, promote your music, etc.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
so yeah, man, we got a pretty strong team, and then we have an in-house label services squad that I'm not going to sit here as open to, and tell you that it's open to everybody, but once you start to get a little traction, or if you have a direct deal with us, we do have an in-house label services team that's pretty strong that pitches you for Spotify uh, editorial placement, Spotify homepage takeovers, a lot of other opportunities, TikTok ad credits, a lot of other opportunities if you start to get traction. Obviously, that's not something that we can offer at scale. So I'm not going to sit here and lie to folks and be like, yeah, we're going to get your music on all these playlists. But for the artists that are moving, the option is there to work with our label services team. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
sick. I was reacquainting myself with the whole process of like if I was just a nobody artist, didn't have a following or anything, what's the process? So I signed up for Spotify. I usually didn't pay for Spotify because somebody hacked it years ago and followed all these artists I didn't know. And I was scared to pay them because there's no two-step authentication. Then I was like, okay, this is sketchy. Then I went to, the other, what was it, DistroKid or whatever. Then I'm like, how do you click on the basic stuff like splits? How do you get your stuff on TikTok monetized? So all that is easy on the Two Lost platform where they can sign in. Do you guys have like a splits section?
yeah. So there's collaborator splits, and for producers. So when our process is a little more stringent. This will be good for producers, right? So we run all of the music through like the content ID, and we'll make artists like upload their beat licenses and things like that to make sure that there's no, to limit the cases of fraud or any like copyright infringements and things like that. So from a producer standpoint, it's more protective of music than I've seen other platforms. Sometimes it slows the process down a little bit because you do have to have your shit together. You have to have your beat licenses and things like that. But at the end of the day, it makes it better for the artists and the producers.
Thank you.
But yeah, there's collab splits and there's free collaborator accounts too. So like I know with DistroKid, sometimes some of the pain is like if you and I make a song, I don't have a DistroKid account, but I need to get these royalties. I have to sign up for a paid account in order to collect my percentage of the royalties. On our platform, it's not like that. You can have a free collaborator account and get paid out whether you have a paid account or not.
Wow, that's so. It's funny you said that because last night I was like, oh, on DistroKid you could create a split, but in order for the other person to collect it, they have to sign up for a 50% off thing, which is like a sales process. So I appreciate you
Yeah.
explaining that. And I want to get your thoughts on independence because I think once we understand these tools, because the problem is, I'll say the problem, and then I'll let you ISO with your thoughts, is that as music artists and producers, the traditional path is like we have to sign up for 12 websites. You have to understand 100 things about EIN, IPI, ISRB, whatever, all the acronyms out there. And then you got to make sense of how to monetize each one. So I like the platforms, like you're saying, with Two Losses that you have one stop shop. You click here, you do this. You click here, you do that. So can you explain maybe your thoughts on independence? What is independence and how do we navigate that space?
I mean, I guess there's a lot of definitions of these. I was watching Joe Budden on the Math Hoffa podcast. He basically was saying that nobody's independent because a lot of these companies are owned by bigger corporations. I definitely don't fall into that camp. To me, man, if you're creating what you want to create on your terms, you have majority ownership in your music. Um, to me you're independent. You're not tied to one of these major record labels. You know, the, but to me it doesn't even. I mean, I champion independence. I want people to build their businesses and build their communities and understand exactly what they're doing, understand the business. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of ways to win, right? And for most artists, it's going to have to be through independence because the option to sign is not even available to you. So, but at the end of the day, like I just want artists to win, and whatever route, takes you to wherever your goals are, where you can achieve them, then that's what I want. It's a tough business. Very few artists are going to be able to make a career making music. The industry or the way it's set up, it was never designed for like a majority of people to win, right? It's going to be a very small percentage of people that can do this as a career. So however you get to it, I support it, as long as it's legal.
Yeah, yeah. Now that makes sense. I saw a thumbnail. I was looking your interviews up, and one said like Trapital. I assumed it meant like capital from the trap lifestyle, but I'm assuming because
Nah,
you.
that's Dan Runcie's platform. That's Dan
Oh,
Runcie, a dope platform. He's advancing a lot of these conversations. He's got I went to business school as well, but he has a similar background to me. He's in corporate, went to business school, and he's kind of just raising the level of quality of conversations around music. So if you haven't tapped into Trapital and like all the content that he's putting out, definitely should tap into what he's doing. I think he's putting out some great content.
okay, dope. Because I was catching up on the MECs, and then I had to watch my son last night, and then I couldn't get to all the interviews I wanted to get to before, because I want to hear stuff that you haven't shared. I don't want to be like a broken clock or whatever. But you mentioned this; it's so nuanced, but I want to hear your thoughts about it. You were mentioning how you are, you're building up an artist, and then you had the email push and all these different things on the marketing side. And then I guess another artist or producer, I'm not sure exactly, came in and they could leverage all that momentum that the first artist had, almost like social capital. Instead of financial capital, it was like marketing capital, social media capital. Can you explain somebody who doesn't have, the cosign or the thing to like push them, how important is that? If my question's making sense.
So how important is the social capital, or how do you start to build it if you don't have something that you can plug into?
How important is it? Because I think the reason I'm asking this is I think that people don't respect the business side, which is that's the thing that grows everything else.
Yeah. So I think part of what you were alluding to, I used to run a label called Funk Volume. We started, I came from the corporate world, didn't have any music industry connects, but it was me, Hobson, and my brother just started a label, started building it brick by brick. But as we started to get little bit of momentum, it was important for us to like obviously not only build Hop social presence or my brother's social presence, but the Funk Volume platforms, right? So we had all these different platforms. We had, Facebook. We were one of the first, not not one of the first people on Facebook, but really one of the first artists to or labels to kind of really build on Facebook. Because I was like, okay, everybody's here. Kind of like the opportunity that was on TikTok a few years ago. Like once it started, a lot of hip hop artists got left behind because it wasn't the cool thing to do. But that's where a lot of people were. That's where a lot of traction was. So Facebook was that in 2008, 2009, right? So we started building out all these different platforms. So when we did add an artist, it was easy to get I'm gonna say easy. It was easier to get the word out because we had Hop's platforms, my brother's platforms. At that time, MySpace was kind of on its way out, but Facebook, and Facebook groups and all these things. So when we need to get a word out, we can act collectively as opposed to just one artist tweeting something out or posting something out. So that's kind of the value of a label or just the value of a team. It doesn't even have to be like a formal label. If you got a group of people, you guys are working together, combine your assets and get the word out on all your different platforms so that you can amplify the reach. If you can team up with 10 people that have 100,000 followers, that's 1 million followers. If you guys can just coordinate, work together and like I said, amplify your messaging. So I think that might have been what I was talking to in the interview that you saw, if it did come from an interview. But if you're starting by yourself, you definitely should be networking, starting to build these relationships. But I think it all really starts with having like a great understanding of who you are and the story that you're trying to tell, right? Not just through your music, but like what do you want people to know or think about you when they hear your name? What are the things that should be associated with you, right? So for you, obviously, you're a producer. It's education. Those are primarily the things I think of when I hear your or see your brand. You just
Oh,
talked
thank you.
about, a son. So you might, I don't know how much you introduce your son to social media or your social media to your son, but what are the things that those are the type of things like you should be thinking about, because once you have that down, the second step is like, okay, figuring out what kind of content um articulates that messaging or tells that story, right? And then I'm a more structured person. I know that, creatives are typically all over the place, but in order to get like more content out the door, I feel like you have to have a little bit of more structured approach so that you can create more efficiently, right? And tell your story more efficiently. So I think that's
True.
really what it starts with, is just having a clear understanding of like the messaging, the story you're trying to tell, kind of how you're going to go about that. Like for me on my social media, I'm not as focused on like growing a following or anything, but if I was more focused, like, it's education, it's hoop. I'm a basketball fan. Like I might share that side of me every once in a while. So, share some stuff about social issues and things like that. Because at the end of the day, you just want people to buy into you and you as a person. Your music is much easier to sell if they just like you as a
Yeah.
person. So that was probably I don't know if that's where you were going with that
Yeah,
question, but
yeah,
I would
yeah.
start with like having a strong grasp of who you are and the story that you're trying to tell and like what you want people to think about when your name gets brought up.
Yeah, I love that collab approach. I think too little people think that way. It's the mastermind principle from Napoleon Hill. And it's like that's how we can 10x this when we all resonate on one frequency. And that's how sound is amplified from a guitar string. It's not the string, it's the soundboard that connects, the strings in the soundboard, and that amplifies it out. And so you can move mountains when we focus on that one frequency. I just wish more people thought like that. But yeah, I saw your
Yeah.
Lil Russell. I didn't even know you had your own. That's what I'm saying. I had to do so much research. I'm just so used to MEC content. I didn't know you had your own thing going. And then I saw your Lil Russell interview last night.
Yeah, it's kind of a good thing because Funk Volume crashed and burned when me and Hobson butted heads in the most ridiculous fashion ever in 2016. So it was embarrassing. It was ridiculous. We recorded a podcast like 3 years after that, like told a little bit more of the truth of what happened. It's actually, and the podcast is still on YouTube as well. But yeah, I used to run a record label called Funk Volume. Had artists like Hobson, Dizzy Wright, Jaron Benton. We had a nice little run from like I would say like 2011 to 2016. Uh, but then yeah, it just kind of crashed and burned and became one of those stupid music industry stories. So I
Sorry to hear
guess you
that.
found after that, after because the MEC didn't start. Probably the MEC came out of the ashes of Funk Volume because I felt like it was important for artists to learn the business because I saw firsthand what happens when they don't, and how tough the conversations are to have with an artist that really doesn't understand the business, and it's more just ego and emotion.
Hmm. No, yeah, you're right. I wish there was more. Like in the book by Donald Passman, some of the first chapters talk about building a team. Get your agent, get your lawyer, whatever, et cetera. But I'm like, they never talk about the partnership side. For example, me and Curtis King used to be like business partners in a way. We had it clashing, and then it just was like the complete opposite. Nobody talks about how stuff can just go nuclear the other way.
Yeah.
Maybe what are some lessons we could, before people jump into the pond of hoping and praying that one man's going to change their life. How do you give people tips on how to choose, if that makes sense?
How to choose
A
like
team, sorry,
a team.
or a partner.
Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of the books, like the Donald Passman book, has great information in terms of like, understanding the industry, but it doesn't, you need to learn from people that are actually doing it now, right? And because there's so many things that aren't going to be in that book. That's going to be that book's like, okay, what is publishing? What is a booking agent? Like, and that's important. But in terms of how things operate, especially today, there's much more information that you're going to need to learn from platforms like yourself, from platforms like the Music Entrepreneur Club, that if they hear from people that are actually doing it today, because a lot of the stuff, there's a lot of different nuances. But in terms of picking your team, um, I be very selective of people you actually put on the team, like officially, because you don't. A lot of times, artists avoid like acquiring a new skill because they're lazy and they just want somebody else to do it. When in reality, you should be stacking as many skills as you can. Until you get to a point where you really can't do it yourself and you have enough success that warrants somebody stepping in and filling that role. But like, you want to do as much as you can. And even I took that approach as I was building the label because, I took pride in the fact that I never asked anybody to do anything that I hadn't already done myself, right? So I was like managing all the social media. I was the driver, I was selling merch, I was doing all these things that I eventually was able to hire somebody for, but I knew what the job entailed because I did it myself. But you want to find passionate, reliable people that understand your vision, believe in your vision, and maybe just plug some of the holes that are your weaker areas. It doesn't necessarily have to be a manager. I would be very, I would reserve that title until 100% like that person, should be your like actual manager, because that's such a crucial position in my in my opinion. So take your time. Don't just add people to the team because you need help. Oftentimes you do that and you find yourself like in a pretty messed up relationship because you look past all of these red flags, but you were so frustrated with your journey, you just knew you needed help. So you gave somebody a title or you put somebody on the team. And now you need to unwind that because, you weren't thinking clearly. You just wanted help, right? You
That's
just didn't
deep.
want to be in this by yourself. So take your time and make sure it feels right and make sure you're not putting somebody on the team just because, you're being lazy.
Oh, you said something that just resonated so deeply because I've hired multiple teams, customer support teams, tech teams, software teams. And one thing that I used to do that was a big flaw was not make people earn their respect or their position. I would give them way too much trust up front and they would take advantage of that because it's hard to, like you said in past MECs, even you're like, look, or no, in your the Russell interview, I think it was, you're like, if I did the job, I know what it takes to do the job. So I can't be finessed by somebody who's just acting like it takes 20 hours and they charge by the hour, that type of
Yeah.
stuff. Man, you
Yeah.
said that nuance is, with the lesson I took, is qualify people. Make sure they earned their spot and they're not entitled to anything. Because you said that just resonated so deeply, dealing with so many people. I want to ask you too. I'm kind of going on a rough timeline. The
Okay.
YouTube's titled "Music Industry Myths" or something like that. So I do want to tap into some myths you think people are following, that almost like a false religion. But before we get to that, your thoughts on streaming, because now that you represent Two Lost, and I love that they've found somebody who has a personality and a drive and a mission, and people follow you first. Then we respect whoever you're working with. So it's almost like LeBron going to a different team, and now we're like
Yeah.
focused on the Cavaliers or the Lakers.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on just streaming, and then how do if my perspective is only streaming, can you kind of give me some realities to say, do this, you have to make sure this is the foundation for your business to be like a DIY type independent, or is it just streaming? Or because you have some pretty controversial takes on streaming that are, or not controversial, but contrasting views on streaming.
Yeah, a lot of people are frustrated with streaming, but I come into work every day and I see so many artists that are winning. I think we pay out $5 million a month of streaming royalties.
Oh,
Um,
that's nuts.
Oh, so like, and then I see all these finance companies like getting into the music industry because of streaming. So if you have all this activity, I'm seeing all these artists winning. It's not easy. So that's the thing. This, like I said earlier in this interview, like it's the industry, whether it's streaming, whether it's selling CDs out your trunk, whether it's on consignment, whatever it is, the music industry has never been easy. So what I think we're hearing is just a lot of the frustration because more people are making music today than ever, right? Like it's become easier to make music. It's attractive. People think it looks fun, feels fun. So a lot more artists are going to be trying to make a living in music. So that just means there's going to be that many more people that are going to fail or not going to be able to have a career in this, because that's always been the way that it's designed. However, on the flip side of this, like more artists than ever are making it's still a very small percentage, but more artists, more, I believe there's more independent artists today than ever before, right? And there's a lot of that success is coming from streaming. I just interviewed Nick D. I have a podcast called the Independent Living Podcast where I interview some of the most successful independent creators. I interviewed Nick D last week. This episode will drop in the coming weeks, but he's got like 3.5 million monthly listeners. Did it independently, grew through short form content, good music, consistency, and he's crushing. Like he has no complaints. I'm telling you, he has no complaints with streaming. He's making a lot of money from streaming, and he's getting deals. Like some of these finance companies are coming in or buying catalogs or licensing catalogs. So I'm seeing the opportunity that streaming is opening up because it's consistent, fairly predictable cash flow, right? And that's what investors, that's what finance companies like are looking for. They're looking for alternative investments that can provide, a reliable, transparent, fairly predictable cash flow on a catalog that has been streaming well. So if my catalog has been streaming well for, the past year, I'm sorry,
It's all good. My son
past
may.
year,
Okay. I
they can
said.
kind of
Okay.
predict how that cash flow is going to continue to perform and give you money today for those future cash flow for that future cash flow. Now, and I'm not going to sit here that I have to defend streaming so much it makes people think that like I think it's perfect, right? I always want creators to get paid more, right? Like if it can be $1 a stream, I'd be like, that's amazing. That just doesn't work with Spotify's business model. They go out of business and it just wouldn't work. So I'm always going to advocate for artists to get paid more, but there's a huge opportunity right now if you're able to figure it out. If you have solid music, if you're consistent, if you're able to stack your fans and get your monthly listeners up, like a lot of artists are winning. I'm introduced to new artists every day that I didn't even know existed because the market's so fragmented now. Like it's not just a few like mega stars. Matter of fact, it's going to be harder to create mega stars going forward. But there are a shitload of artists that have 1 million monthly listeners, 500,000 monthly listeners, 750,000 monthly listeners. Like I'm talking to these artists all the time, so it's really hard for me to buy into like, streaming's not working or, streaming's not paying any money. Like I'm literally seeing, and the catalog that I still own from Funk Volume is still generating that, that's music that was put out, over 6, 7 years ago. So you can't tell me that streaming's not working because I'm seeing it. So if you tell me that it's not working for artists, I have to doubt like just your proximity to any type of success, whether it's yours or an artist that's winning from the streaming era. That's
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm part of that message. I used to be like, Spotify did what to y'all for 0.003 cents, and then I went on this whole thing about Spotify. So I am part of that, demonizing the big corporation, so to speak. And then last night I was doing
I mean,
research.
I get it, like, but at the end of the like I said, a lot of artists are winning. It's just so it sounds like a really low number, like point zero. So it's easy to play on existing frustration. And most artists are frustrated, right? Most artists aren't winning. But again, it's not set up to it's it's too attractive of an industry, and everybody wants to do it, so everybody can't win. Like everybody's not, people will tell you like, yeah, you can all win. Like, no, there's just not that much demand for music. Like that everybody can't win, right? That we can't win at the same thing, but we can win at something, right? Like that's kind of what I tell people. Like, but there is an opportunity if your music's great, your story's intact, you're consistent, you do have a better opportunity to win than a lot of these other people that are just getting frustrated and throwing their hands up.
Oh, that's definitely facts. You reminded me of some. I'm following. I think these kids have like 37 subscribers on the YouTube Music platform, but they have the hardest music, and I played it at least 100 times in the last week or the month. And like you're saying, it's everything's kind of getting niched down. It's almost like the underground is better than the mainstream, in my opinion. I can't think of the
Yeah.
last mainstream project I really got excited about, but that's just me. I could be, the numbers could say different. But real
Yeah.
quick, something I saw last night digging into Spotify's research as I learned more about Spotify with their financials and all the investor relations pages. I'm like, wow, I'm having empathy for both sides. And I think that's what you bring to this pool of thought is that we're not just focused on the artist side who's going to demonize everything about the label or the business. We're also looking from the business perspective to say, look, I'm taking a huge risk. I'm putting my life at risk, hoping that this artist does what they say they're going to do. Can you speak to, I guess, because we have, I don't have the paid Zoom, so it's like a limited time Zoom. And I think it caps
Oh,
out at 40 minutes, so forgive me on that one. But can you
okay.
speak to just what are some empathetic points that we could focus on for an artist or even from the businessy side? Because here, let me preface it because this question won't make sense. I've found, and I work with Grammy winning producers, got them opportunity, and whoever, and I found that creatives are sloppy. Like, what are your thoughts on that first before I even ask you this next? What are your thoughts on just creatives being so sloppy?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have some structure to what you're doing. And a lot of times that's what a manager can provide is just trying to give you some structure in terms of how you operate. Because a lot of times artists are all over the place, but I think that artists can be more structured, but what I've seen is that artists just kind of like, oh, that's just not my job. Like I can't. A lot of this business stuff is easy if you just focus on it. Like you don't need another person to do it, from day one. We kind of let artists lean into that because that's kind of been the stereotype of an artist is just kind of like, oh, their thoughts are all over the place. But I've met a lot of artists with structure and they do well, right? They're able to put out that song a week or that song every other week. They get on Zooms on time, right? Like they're very professional about how they do their business. And again, that's going to give you a leg up over your competition, right? Because you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities if are somebody that's unprofessional or just not likable or can't show up on time. Like all these things, all these little things, that limit your opportunities. You're gonna miss out on it if you don't have that structure. So I kind of forget what the question was, but I think I'm in the ballpark. But yeah, I obviously encourage artists to be as professional and structured as possible. Check your DM. Like, do not miss an opportunity because you don't check your DMs or because you don't check your email. That's wow. There should be at least a few minutes a day where you go through your DMs. You never know who's in there, right? It could be a big brand, it could be a label, it could be your next manager or a producer that wants to work with you. Um, I've just seen time and time again where artists are just missing great opportunities. Like I've reached out to artists with what I think are great opportunities. I have something called 1 week notice. I've done it twice where I fly artists out, put them in a house, and task them with creating a project in a week. And the last time I did it, a few artists just didn't get back to me. Now they maybe they did do the research and be like, oh, that's whack. I would never want to do that. But I have a feeling that a few people didn't even get the message. Didn't I was just left unread. So yeah, don't be that artist.
Wow, that sounds like a fire TV show. Because I was pitching a producer TV show to different outlets, and one of the outlets was Sweetwater. They have a YouTube channel, and they were bidding for like an episode potentially. And I got all these sponsors involved. That sounds like a fire concept. 1 week notice.
Yeah, the last time we did it, Revolt was involved. We had a few brands. Like it was dope. We did it in Hollywood. The first time we did it in Austin, Texas. I'm gonna try to do it next year and see if Two Loss is interested in supporting it. But it's a dope, it's a dope concept, in my opinion. So yeah, hopefully we do number three next year.
That's fire because it has urgency built in. It has that like American Idol type challenge to it. That's a really fire. Just that's what
Yeah,
business minds do. I'll make a quick anecdote before I ask you the next question. Is people would ask me to drive traffic to their Discord, for example. I'll drive 2,000 people to their Discord. They're up 2,000. So they think that they have the secret and they're like the thing. And then I stop putting attention to it and it just stays there. Does that make sense? And like people have this illusion that they're creating the momentum, but it's really the businessy minded folks like growth people like yourself who grow the plants. The plants have the seeds and the DNA, but you need a good gardener to know when to swap out the dirt instead of pulling up the entire plant. Maybe we just need fertilizer. Um,
yeah,
One thing real quick is you said to, and I had to write the note before I forgot, because you said to La Russell, you were like, you're just likable. Because he was going on about merch or something like that. You were like, you're just a likable person. People are just going to support you because you're likable. That's a skill set, though.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, I mean the things that he does in the community, his perspective that he shares in his music and in his social media posts, the energy, the charisma, personality that you see kind of just comes through the screen or comes through your phone. Um, I think that is a big reason why, he's winning. Um, so yeah, if you, it's hard for people to change their personality if they're not that, or to just get some charisma if you don't have it. A lot of this stuff is, I mean, it can be worked on. Some people just need to get out of their shell a little bit. But some of it I think you're born with to some extent.
True.
Some of the qualities come more natural to some than to others.
Yeah, because there's a whole narrative like, oh, take this magical supplement, your IQ will go up. It's like you're born with your IQ. You're either born dumb or born smart. It's just in the DNA. I've studied bio and pre med for 4 years, and that stuff is hard baked. Some stuff is not as hard baked. Real quick, Class E Beat says, I love Dame's no excuses attitude when it comes to this topic. He's on point. Shout out to Class E Beats, another kind of figure in our community space. But yeah, I think people come to you and they respect you because for the first time, we've never seen somebody who calmly comes from the business side, not trying to screw us over, just trying to give us information, and then also gives us a perspective to help us empathize with the other side. It's not that we're trying to demonize. You're helping us see this is a team sport. And without going too deep into that, another thing you mentioned about the finance folks, and I learned this from my mentor, Chris Moye at the time. He told me that music income is recession proof. Like if you look at history, it doesn't like the market conditions don't shake music, and that's why it's about to go up. I think 15% by 2027. Investors are looking into investing in a bunch of music because you get better returns than the S&P 500. So real quick, we have 4 minutes left. I'm trying to think of shortcut questions to ask you.
Well,
You
before the last question, I'm not always. I feel like I have my own opinions. Like I'm definitely not always on the label side, and I'm definitely not always on the artist side. Like I take what I've learned from the business side and from working with artists, and I have my own opinions, and I definitely not saying like I'm always right. But I think there are some blind spots when you're coming just from the label side or just from the artist side. And again, artists are so frustrated. Yeah, it's easy to piggyback an artist's frustration, or it's easy to kind of trick artists into, it's like it's confirmation bias, right? Like they already are frustrated, they already believe in one thing. So it's a lot of even music business educators kind of play into that frustration. So I tried as much as I can to look at it from both sides, and I know that a lot of times my voice is monotone to act like it maybe seems like I don't care. I'm just as shrewd as the other, business people that make this industry shady. But like, I just try to approach it with both sides. And I know we don't have that much more time. So let me, feel free to ask me your last couple of questions. But I just wanted to make sure I said, like, I'm not always, because even LaRussell asked me, he's like, I'm not sure who you're for. I was like, I'm not for, I'm for my truth, right? Like sometimes I rock with the labels if I think it makes sense, and or the labels and managers. Sometimes I rock with the artists. I try to see both sides of the situation.
Yeah, no, that's what I resonate with the most is you're business minded and creative. And that combination is super rare. That's what creates the Virgils of the world, the Kanyes of the world. Like that's what separates those folks. I think, the eye is built to detect contrast. Yeah, I forget all the, there's a retina system, there's a visual complex system. But the point is, our eye is even designed to detect differences and distance and contrast. And so with your message, you're creating that difference from everybody else who's just, I'm only for independence. I'm only for, managers. I think you're creating that difference from all the monotony and ubiquitousness, if that's even a word out there. Real quick, you broke us the myth of streaming, and that streaming is not just pennies. It can be a lucrative aspect. What are some other myths maybe in the last minute? I have a minute left. Darn. So many questions to ask you, but in the last minute, what's something that you can maybe shock us into reality about what you've seen? Just anything that could shock the audience.
Shit, I don't know. I don't, um, uh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, as discouraging as I sound sometimes, maybe I'll just leave with some encouragement because like I said earlier in the conversation, like there are artists that are winning. I'm inspired every day. As I learn about a new artist, they have their A&R meetings every Tuesday, and they go over their priority arcs and the new acts that they've signed. And I just think it's dope that I'm introduced to a new artist almost daily that's doing well, that has a community that's thriving, that's setting up their business, they're learning how to figure things out. So that can be you. And while everybody's complaining, like you can have your shit together and building things the right way. As difficult as it is to make music these days and to be it a career, be for it to be a career, because so many people trying to do it, a lot of people are just complaining. It's gonna be impossible for them to make it. So you just move to the side, tap into BusyWorks Beats, and learn exactly
Thank you.
how to do the business, and give yourself the best shot to win.
Oh, you the man. Always listening to your messages. I think Zoom's about to blow up in a second. I just wanted to say thank you. And till next time, I'm gonna. And what should people focus on? Too Lost.
Yeah, go to Two Lost. We got some dope opportunities starting soon. So follow Two Lost on Instagram at Two Lost, TOOLOST, and you can follow me on Instagram as well at dame.mec, dame.mec.
Code Dame for what was the benefit? Oh, dang it. I tried to, y'all. My fault, y'all. I'm too. Oh, my webcam was up the whole time, so y'all saw two faces of me the whole time. But oh, that's what he was saying about the mirror faces. I thought you meant. I didn't know what you meant with that comment. I want to thank everybody for being here. I'm going to go live again at 12 p.m. Eastern time for the coaching, but I wanted to bring Dame on because he just has a contrasting message. I think what's going around right now is that it's poor artists, poor independent artists. Well, let's fight against the corporations. And it's just not that way. I think when people see the reality of what you can do in the music business, I think we'll all work a little bit more efficiently. But demonizing people who are helping us is like, even I'm guilty to that degree. I've kind of not demonized, but pointed out the negative sides of streaming and people putting all their faith into one channel. But that's true in a way. Putting all your faith into one revenue stream is like that's foolish to me, in my opinion. But so anyhow, I'm going to leave this interview up for replay. I'm going to send it to the email list probably by tonight, and we have live coaching